Hey everybody, Dr. Chris here for Human 2.0, and today I'm going to talk about 3 exercises that you're probably not doing that just might change your life. Let me explain why I think they're so important. Every day I see patients in my clinic or at the hospital who are referred to me for a number of different causes, many of which have to do with joint pain. And this can be pain in the shoulders, pain in the hips, pain in the knees, multiple areas of the body. Oftentimes, after we do a history and physical and we do some imaging analysis of these patients, we find that they don't really have anything that is that significantly wrong with them. And most of these people have issues that can easily be treated non-operatively with exercise. So one of the first exercises that I think is essential is going to be the scapular push-up. When people think about the shoulder, they actually think it's only one joint, but it's really 3 joints. The acromioclavicular joint, the glenohumeral joint, and the scapulothoracic joint on the back. I often say to people that the scapula is like the stage upon which the shoulder acts. And if you want to have a good play, the stage needs to be set properly. So we're going to work on the scapular push-up. So let's get right to it. So for this exercise, you're going to get into a push-up position. And depending on your level of strength, you can either do it from a regular push-up position on your in a pike position, or you can go onto your hands and knees. But in either case, what you want to do is you're going to stack the shoulder over the elbow and the elbow over the hand. So all 3 are going to be in line. Your hands are going to be placed on the ground in front of you with your index fingers pointed towards a 12 o'clock position and your fingers spread wide. You want to make sure that when you do this exercise, we lock the elbow and we turn the eye of the elbow or the antecubital fossa towards the front. So this is our locked position. And when we do this push-up, we're going to keep our arms in the locked position the whole time. So to do this push-up, what you're going to do is you're going to allow your torso to drop down in between your shoulders so that your shoulder blades can touch together on the back, all while keeping your arms straight. And then you're going to push all the way up and bring your shoulder blades as far apart as possible so that we can maximize the distance between the shoulder blades. So that would be 1 repetition. So we would, again, come down in between and allow our shoulder blades to touch together at the back, and then all the way up to the top where we spread them as far apart as possible. If you're looking at it from the top, basically what's going to happen is that your shoulder blades are going to come together like this, and then they're going to come all the way apart like that. Okay? And so that will be 1 repetition. And for this exercise, you're going to incorporate it into your mobility training, and you're generally going to do 3 sets and anywhere from sort of 5 to 8 repetitions. This is not something that you need to do a ton of, but it's something that helps to give you good scapular awareness and strengthens the muscles around the scapula. So let's do a couple repetitions here. So we'll first do the regressed version from our knees, down, up, down, up, and notice that my arms stay straight the entire time. And then we'll do a couple of the more advanced, down, up, down, and up. And when we do in that exercise, we're trying to keep the head and the cervical spine in a neutral position, so you can look down at the floor, but keep your head directed towards the front. We're trying not to shrug our shoulders, trying to keep our shoulders depressed as we do it, and just move only in the sagittal or the sideways plane. So we're just moving forward and back, but without elevating our shoulders. So that's the scapular push-up. That's for your shoulder mobility, and that's exercise number 1. Exercise number 2 is going to be for your knee, and this is much less a mobility exercise, but more about being a strengthening exercise. And this is going to be to work on activation of the quad, and with a little bit of a focus on the VMO or the teardrop part of the muscle. This is a great exercise for people who have weakness of the quads. They have patellar maltracking issues. They have anterior knee pain, or if they have weakness or instability around the knee. So you can use a PVC pipe or a wall or something like that if you need for balance. You could, of course, do this exercise freestanding, but when you're starting out, it's much easier to use something for balance. So if we're working on the left leg, so my right but your left, what we're going to do, this is the leg that we're focusing on for the moment. And what we're going to do is we're going to have a nice active foot. And what I mean by that is that you're going to stand on the foot. You're going to grip the toes into the floor, squeeze those toes back toward the heel so that you have a nice active foot, okay? Then what we're going to do is we're going to bend our knee, keep the knee on the outside edge of the foot so that when you look down at your foot, you can see the big toe on the inside. And then we're going to pick up the back leg and we're just going to hold this position. So this is an isometric bent knee hold. And this is a great exercise for activating the quads and helping VMO strengthening. It strengthens the entire quad, but I think that there is a little bit of a focus on the VMO if we position ourselves appropriately. So there's a lot of debate about whether you can isolate any one of the muscles of the quadricep when you're doing strengthening. And I think that whenever you're doing any exercise that strengthens the quad, the entire quad is being strengthened. However, if you look at when you're in a single leg stance, you have your mechanical axis, which goes from your center of gravity, which is basically your belly button, down to the floor. And if you draw a line between those 2 points, this is where the forces that are acting on your lower extremity are basically summed up. And so if we put the muscle that we are trying to focus our attention on in line with that force, then that muscle will be preferentially activated, or it will be the one that's most heavily recruited in order to help with this movement. So again, we're going to sit into that position and hold this. Now, when we're doing this exercise, we want to work towards 60-second holds in this position. And people will say, oh, well, you're just holding this position. That's not very hard. Well, if you are able to hold this position without any difficulty, the way to progress this exercise or increase the difficulty level is very simple, and that means just driving your knee forward and sitting down deeper and holding that position. And when you do that, you may find that your legs start to shake, and that's okay, because that just means that you're working sort of towards the outer range of your capability. But over time, we hope to build up your strength and endurance so that you can hold deeper positions for a longer period of time. So that's the isometric hold. And if we're looking at it from the side, so again, set yourself up, nice active foot, bend the knee down into that position, look straight ahead, and hold. And set your timer, and you're working towards 60-second holds. And as I said, this exercise is less about mobility, but more about strength and strength endurance. So that's exercise number 2. Finally, exercise number 3. This is an exercise for your hips. And so this, we're going to be in a seated position. This is a great exercise for people of all ages, whether you are young or whether you are old, whether you have great hips or whether you have arthritic hips. This is a great exercise because it will help to promote and maintain mobility of the hips. And even in people who are osteoarthritic, who have poor hip mobility, this will help to keep their hips as mobile as possible so that either, number one, they can delay the time before which they need a hip replacement, or number two, maximize their function in anticipation of having a hip replacement, because the greatest indicator of postoperative function is your preoperative function. First, start out with our knees roughly at a 90-degree angle. And then we're going to turn to one side. So for you, I'll turn to my left or your right. And we're going to keep both legs at a 90-degree angle at the knee and a 90-degree angle at the hip. So the leg in front, 90, and the leg behind, 90, and then also we're going to be upright. We don't want to lean over to one side and or front or back. We just want to make sure that we're sitting in an upright position. And then what we're going to do is transition from one side to the other. And the way in which we're going to do that is first we're going to leave this front leg glued to the ground as if it were stuck there. And we're going to open up with the opposite side, and we're going to open that as far as we can while keeping this stuck to the ground before we actually open up. So this is being pulled off the ground, the trailing leg, and then we transition over to the other side, drop down, and then follows behind and drop the trailing leg. So that would be one repetition, but of course we have to go back to the opposite side. And there we're going to, again, pick up the back leg, open up as far as we can while keeping this leg pinned to the ground before pulling this back leg off the ground, and at the same time as we transition from one side to the other, pulling our hips apart as far as we can, then docking the front leg, trailing the opposite leg behind, and then dropping that down. So that would be our second repetition. And of course, we would go back and forth, doing anywhere from 6 to 8 reps. So some of the things that we can do to either make this easier or harder. So for people who don't have the same degree of hip mobility, instead of having the knees up at 90 degrees, you can have a less acute angle. So you can have your legs further out, so that it is easier for you to transition from one side to another. Another way that you can make this easier is to place your hands behind you and allowing your torso to lean back. That is the third exercise. And once again, these are mobility and strength exercises, which I think are quite valuable for anybody to use. And while they don't look glamorous, they are going to be very, very effective, and they just might change your life. Thanks for watching. I'm Dr. Chris for Human 2.0, where we help you move better and feel better.